Mic check. Mic check. All right, we are all set here. What's happening, everybody? Welcome into the Wilbur and Gold Show, episode 38 on a Monday. My desk with my coffee and shit on it is back here, so I'm going to get up and go get it for a second. But I am happy to have you with me on a Monday. Cheers to you. Big cheers. Making sure I got my equipment set up here. So what's up? NFL regular season officially over, I think. I don't think there's any Monday night games usually in the last week of the season. I was about to say, this is the first time we've ever had week 18. We added 2 games, obviously, to the NFL season this year. Usually it's 16, so I don't think there's usually a Monday night game. Playoffs are officially set. Let's see here. Yeah, no Monday night game. Playoffs are set, and it is going to be, and I'm really surprised. I'd say the biggest surprise for me, as far as who didn't make the playoffs, was probably the Chargers, because I don't know, they just looked really solid. Like, I remember that game against the Chiefs that they had this year. They went down, like, to the wire. But the Raiders, you got to give the Raiders credit, man. I mean, just the obstacles that they had to get through this year, all the Gruden stuff, and then the Henry Ruggs stuff, and then just the dysfunction in that ownership a little bit. And, they have an interim coach now. I don't know anything about him. I don't even know his name. But you really got to give it to the Raiders. I would say – let's see. The 2 teams that absolutely earned everything they got, the Raiders and the 49ers. Because the 49ers, they were kind of on a downswing there too. At the start of the season, do you start the rookie Trey Lance or do you go with Jimmy Garoppolo? Who do you go with? And then, when they elected to go with Jimmy Garoppolo, it's like, all right, well, is he just going to be our guy for this year until Trey Lance kind of comes into his own, and then do we put in Trey Lance? Well, Jimmy Garoppolo did not give them the option to do that because he played so well, and he battled some injuries, and we know that Jimmy Garoppolo is a little injury-prone at times, and he battled some stuff this year, came right back. And don't get me wrong, Trey Lance, I don't know, man. They got a pickle over there in San Francisco, because everybody thought going into the season that, even if Jimmy G started all or some of this year, Trey Lance is going to be the guy and he is the future for the 49ers. But honestly, now it's like Jimmy G has made a case that why would you want to let him go? Because he's worked you into the playoffs in a year where it didn't look that promising that you were going to make the playoffs there for a while. So, while everybody was thinking that maybe Jimmy G was kind of playing up his draft or his trade stock, if you will, he probably did that with the 49ers too. I mean, they got some decisions to make over there, but obviously they got a playoff run to make right now. And then so I'd say the Raiders and the 49ers are the 2 teams that really earned everything they got this year getting into the playoffs. I had a list of things that I wanted to get into today on a Monday. Busy weekend. I hope you had a good weekend. It was a busy weekend for me. I feel like this is actually the first time I've actually had a good handful of days to sit the fuck down. Luckily, I get to do it with you and chat a little bit. Going to talk some football today for a little while. Probably going to stream tonight over on my Twitch. Be sure to check that out. Got some content I want to make today. Don't know if you'll see that today or tomorrow, but making it today. We'll see if I post it today. Got some stuff I got to take to the post office that I sold over the weekend, doing the whole flipping business thing on eBay and Facebook Marketplace. Sold a good amount of things, so I got to take some stuff to the post office. I hosted some family over the weekend. Had a date an hour or so away over in Raleigh the day before that. And, had a friend I saw last night at not even, just a little later in the day after the family left. So it's been a very hectic handful of days, hectic weekend, but glad to have you just chilling with me today, like we like to do. Probably going to play a little Battlefield 4 tonight. I think me and my buddy Patrick might stream together over on Twitch, but then either before he gets on or after he gets off, I would like to do a little stream and just kind of solo, maybe play a little Battlefield 4 for you guys. What I've been doing here lately is kind of looking through some of my old games. Me and my buddy, we were playing the PS2 this weekend, and we played a little NFL Blitz 2003. Love that game. Played some of the OG Star Wars Battlefront 2. That was my favorite game back in the day. What else? MVP Baseball 2004 with Manny Ramirez on the front. So kind of getting into some of those OG games. Played some Wii Sports. So I would like to, because you don't see a lot of people streaming those type of vintage, I guess you could call them now, games. It's usually Fortnite or Warzone or just the games that are kind of popping right now. So I think I'd like to start streaming some of those older games for you guys. I think it'd be kind of fun to take a little trip down memory lane. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking on the stream. So it's probably going to be Battlefield 4 tonight on the PS4, obviously. Let's see, what else do we want to get into today? So let me talk a little bit now about the state of Carolina football, and that could be one of many things. That could be the Panthers or the Tar Heels, but I'm going to go with the Tar Heels just because I've already ranted a couple episodes ago about the Panthers, and really nothing has changed. Nothing, season is finally over for the Panthers. It was a shit show in the very end, and I hated that for Cam Newton. Not saying, I hated that for Cam, and I hated that. I hated it for everybody. I mean, it was a shit show all the way around these last several weeks, and I'm so conflicted because obviously the typical fan would just be like, "Oh, fire the coach, fire Matt Rule, get rid of Matt Rule." It's not, and I understand that's very passionate and reactionary, but in the actual business and operations side of things, they gave him a 7-year, $62 million deal, and this was just year 2 of it. So it's kind of a two-sided coin here, where you could see where an aggressive. I mean, we all remember, as Panther fans, we remember how, Tepper cleaned the house that year where they fired Ron Rivera with 4 more games to go in the regular season. This was all in 2019, I believe. They fired Rivera. Cam was hurt that year, and it was pretty apparent that he was going to be probably heading out the door. And they got rid of just everybody. They cleaned the house up that off season, got rid of pretty much everybody, brought in Matt Rule. This is 4 straight years now that the Panthers have missed the playoffs. This is 3 straight years that they've gone 5 wins. It's going to be 5-12 this year. I think it was the final 5-11 the last couple other seasons. So no progression on the record, strictly number side of things. You got to look at, I guess, some of the more tangible things that aren't necessarily numbers on paper. McCaffrey got hurt again, and I feel like he played a little more this season than he did last season, but he still lost a big chunk of his season, probably half of it at least, due to injury. And so, and I'm going to spend about 30 seconds on it. The offensive line was one of the worst in the league again. I've said it before on this show. The year that the Panthers had their best season in franchise history, that they won their 1-loss season in 2015. Cam won the MVP. Their defense was pretty much the best in the league outside of the Broncos. Pretty much that was the best 2 defenses in the league that year. Obviously, Von Miller and the Broncos got the best of the Panthers, but that was the best season and one of the most explosive seasons we've seen from any team in in the NFL. I mean, just as the explosion of their offense and the explosion of the defense, the explosion of Cam Newton, just an explosive year. I mean, that was before Christian McCaffrey ever even got there. I think that was the year before or something like that. But even that year, the Panthers came in to the NFL with the 32nd last ranked offensive line. That is how long that this shit has been a problem for them. And maybe, I don't know the numbers before that, but maybe even longer than that. It's just ridiculous. Like, and now David Tepper wasn't the owner back then. He didn't become the owner till, a couple seasons later in 2017 or 18, I think it was. But it just baffles me that something can so clearly, if you know anything about football, it should have been so clear that that was your biggest issue, was the offensive line. Cam, even though he was and is a mobile quarterback that is most deadly with his legs, a lot of those runs were not voluntary. I mean, he has that, but a lot of those runs were never voluntary. It was him trying to get out of the freaking way and run for his life because the offensive line was so bad. And so a lot of the many hits that, probably ended up shortening his career. We'll see if he retires, if the Panthers just bring him back and try and start fresh. I don't know what is going to happen. I think it is about over for Cam, and I'm the biggest Cam Newton fan on this planet, but I'm also going to be reasonable and objective about it. I thought that it was going to go a lot better with him the remainder of this season when they brought him in than what it did. But we really only saw one very impactful game that Cam, ironically enough, it wasn't a game he started, but I mean, in the first quarter, just a couple explosive plays out of him really just led the entire team for the whole game, and they dominated a Kyler Murray-less and Hopkins-less Cardinals, but they beat the crap out of them on the road. And that was the last win that the Panthers had this season. And then that next game in Cam's homecoming against Washington, I mean, Cam really actually played pretty solid. The defense kind of dropped the ball a little bit, and Cam, didn't come through on a fourth down play, kind of in the last moments. But all in all, he had a very good game. But those were probably his two best games since his return. And then, that was the stinker at the Dolphins, and the Bills wasn't a great one. It didn't go great, but there was a lot more components to it than just Cam Newton. So you can't put it all at his door, but he wasn't great after the Washington game. He had a nice 5-game streak where he ran a touchdown in with his legs and some impactful moments there, but he also had some moments, interceptions. So it's kind of a 50-50, like he did some good, but also there was a little bad that came with it. And at the end of the day, you wonder how much the offensive line has to do with, Cam Newton has never been a great passing quarterback, but you wonder how much the lack of time he has to throw. Because Cam Newton actually had some times this year where he's throwing pretty crispy. Like, he threw pretty good, and it was like, okay, he looks a little better on that standpoint, but at the end of the day, he is pretty. I think he's almost to the end of his rope. He's still one of the best there is when it comes to bodying around and being in the red zone and bodying his way into the end zone and doing it with his legs. It's not what he was in 2015, but he's still one of the best in the league at it. I'm pretty sure he led the league in rushing touchdowns on that front this year. Considering he only played about half the season. But he's not the future for the Panthers anymore. Unfortunately, I would love to see them maybe give him one more full year. You don't have to pay him anything ridiculous. You could just sign him to a 1-year deal and draft. This is what I would do if I'm the Panthers. Like, I would maybe give Cam one more shot because he is a dangerous. And I didn't really understand the move to go back to Darnold. Just didn't. I would rather have Cam do it, but that's what they chose to do, in these last couple of weeks. And I think what I would have done, or what I would do if I was the Panthers, is I would draft, I believe they have the 6th overall pick. If the draft were to start right now, let me actually look and see. And yeah. Let's see. The Panthers have the number 6 overall pick. They had the number 8 overall pick last year, and I'm not going to say they botched it in the sense because I like J.C. Horn a lot, and he's a very good corner. But you drafted all defense in Matt Rule's first year as coach. You didn't really need J.C. Horn. What you needed was your future quarterback, and I guess they thought they had it in Sam Darnold because he was about as young as a lot of those quarterbacks coming out of the draft. So that's just the way they looked at it. But I find it odd that Matt Rule literally said that he felt that Mac Jones was going to do really well and succeed wherever he went, and yet you didn't take him when you had the opportunity to get him. And at the end of the day, I don't care if you got Darnold. You don't know for sure. You know what his history was with the Jets. Now, granted, the Jets had a garbage offensive line too, and they're a shit show of an organization too. But that don't mean that it wasn't some Darnold in there too at fault, not just all Jets. Now, it might have been mostly Jets, but you still don't know if Darnold's that guy for the future. Why would you put all your eggs in that basket? And clearly that didn't work. And you had Justin Fields, who I think was the guy you should have taken because he is a young, explosive, very talented, and dynamic quarterback that would have really fit, I thought, what the Panthers were trying to do. How they got a very young and up-and-coming defense, really young, good, explosive offensive weapons. Even, McCaffrey got hurt, but McCaffrey, DJ Moore, very underrated receiver in the league. Robbie Anderson, your tight end, I forget what his name is, but really solid dude. Justin Fields would have fit perfectly in that. And honestly, he had a bad offensive line in Chicago anyway, so it's I think he would have had a better situation in Carolina, but you could have had Matt Jones too. I don't think he would have done as well with the Panthers as he would have with Bill Belichick. I think he went to the perfect scenario. But they botched it last year. In a way, not taking a young potential future quarterback. And this isn't as good of a quarterback class, but you got some options there. I mean, you could keep Sam Howell in state. Now he just came, and we're going to talk about him. This was supposed to be a Tar Heel football segment. It's become a Panther segment. We'll get into the Tar Heels here in just a minute. He just came from a non-existent offensive line, and, so you could draft Sam Howell and keep him in state. That would be cool because, Sam Howell is as explosive as it's getting. The fact that the Heels had 0 offensive line, and yet Sam Howell – and see, that's the thing, and that's why you really have to peel the onion back and not be, Carolina was ranked number 10 overall coming into the season. You see how that turned out. But if you actually peel that part record-wise and where they ended up, true. But when you look at the offensive weapons that they had and how those weapons actually did perform this year, even in loss, you got to figure the Tar Heels, they were in a shootout every stinking game. They were asking Sam Howell to go out and gun it up every game, and damn it if he didn't almost do it. Sam Howell, the Heels came in ranked number 10 overall. Strictly looking at their offensive weapons, I think they were ranked accurately, maybe even a touch low. But offensive line and defense-wise, they weren't even a top 25 team. Their defense and their offensive line both non-existent. And, obviously the Heels, fired their offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator of 3 seasons. And I don't remember what their defense looked like 3 years ago, but I know this year and last year it was completely non-existent for the most part. Yeah. And the fact that Sam Howell had 0 protection and he was able to do what he did and put up the amount of points that he did throughout this season, he was absolutely one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. Able to do and put up the points he did with no offensive line protection, 0. Like, I mean, you just go look at their total average of points each game. Like, so I think Sam Howell would be a good pickup for the Panthers. I would love to see the Panthers get I would say, and this might be a little biased because these are the two I'm most familiar with because I really kind of pay attention to the ACC and obviously Carolina football because I'm a fan. I would say Sam Howell or Kenny Pickett both would be great options. And those were probably the two best a lot of people would have Sam Hartman in there from Wake Forest. And he's in the mix as well. But I would say Brennan Armstrong, UVA. But I would say Sam Howell and Kenny Pickett, two of the best, obviously, quarterbacks in the nation this past year, regardless of, the Tar Heels results. When you actually go look at what he did with no offensive line protection, and he damn near kept up in a shootout every game that he was required to do because of no defense, pretty impressive. And he actually lived up to what he was supposed to be as a Heisman candidate projected Heisman candidate coming into the season. So the Panthers could take either one of those. And I love it when the Panthers have to take a quarterback with a 6 overall pick. And don't let anybody tell you different. We are aware that the offensive line is trash, and and then that's the next step. I think you draft your quarterback, potential future quarterback with the 6th pick, and then the rest of your draft, and I don't know what the O-line prospects look like in this coming draft. I just don't. You got to draft mostly offensive line the rest of the way, or what options are good to get out there. You got to do it. But you have to take one of these top quarterbacks. And it's not a class like last year where you had Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields and Mac Jones and Trey Lance. But you got Sam Howell, you got Kenny Pickett, you got others. You got to draft a quarterback with that number 6 overall pick, especially because of how you kind of, even though J.C. Horn, a great defensive pickup, you really didn't need him as much as you needed a potential future quarterback. Especially when you don't know if you didn't know that Sam Darnold was 100% that guy, and even though for some odd reason you felt the need to go all in on him, and we see how that turned out. So, let's see what else we got here. I'll tell you what the Kansas City Chiefs remind me of. Because obviously they did not have a great start to their season. It wasn't great. A lot of people were talking like, oh, is Mahomes officially peaked? Is he regressing? Are the Chiefs peaked? Are they regressing? And it was looking like maybe they had kind of gone as far as they could go. They've kind of peaked early, so to speak, and maybe the Chiefs are coming back to earth a little bit. And then obviously about halfway through the season, maybe a little more, week by week by week, both Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs as a whole and their defense, which was kind of suspect, started playing a lot better. And so what the Chiefs really remind me of, and the sports media ate that shit up. They were all chirping and talking, oh, the Chiefs, they're coming back to earth. Oh, yeah, Chiefs probably aren't, they're not what they were. Like Mahomes, maybe he's capped or peaked out. And then, the Chiefs, came back and did what they did. The Chiefs remind me of the Patriots back in the Brady era. Because if you recall, the Patriots, they would always kind of struggle, sort of, through the early parts of the season, maybe even the first whole fucking half of the season. And it wasn't until December, maybe a little after Thanksgiving, that they started to slowly start snapping and clicking. And, again, the media. Oh, the Patriots are done. The Patriots are finally coming back to earth. The Patriots dynasty is over. Brady's finally fallen off the cliff. We're still waiting for that to happen. And then all of a sudden, the Patriots find themselves seeing you and beating you in the Super Bowl. And Tom Brady's holding the, Super Bowl MVP or the regular season MVP. Like it was almost like a routine thing every year in kind of the latter half. I don't remember as much because I was so young in the early part of the Patriots dynasty when Brady was kind of in his younger days. But I know that that second half of the Patriots Brady dynasty, it was just like routine every year. September, October, early November, they were kind of meh, coming back to earth, dynasty over, Brady's falling off the cliff. And then week by week, they would shut you the fuck up. And then we'll see you in the fucking Super Bowl holding the trophy. And that's just what would happen so many of the years that they won the Super Bowl or got to the Super Bowl or the AFC Championship year after year after year. And that's what the Chiefs kind of reminded me of this year is just, they really started off the first half of the season not playing very well. I mean, they were last in their division for a good chunk of the first half of the season. And then slowly but surely, Mahomes stayed calm. Mahomes stayed within himself, despite the media chirping 24-7 about, oh, it's over, this Chiefs dynasty. And they're not a dynasty right now, but they're still they're damn good still. And they started to figure it out week by week by week. And then there was that big shootout with Justin Herbert and the Chargers, that epic, one of the best games of the season, a couple weeks before Christmas or a week or so before Christmas. And here we are, Chiefs, one of the top seeds in the AFC, and they're right back in the mix of the top teams in the league. And Mahomes, one of the top quarterbacks in the league. And it reminded me a lot of the Brady Patriots era, just that slow start, a lot of chirping, and eventually they stick it down your fucking throat when they're holding the Lombardi. And this NFL playoff is going to be so good. I got a funny feeling that this is Green Bay's year, and which is going to make the whole Aaron Rodgers situation at the end of the season, where he is free to go potentially elsewhere after all that drama during the offseason between him and the organization. It's going to make it very, very interesting, especially if Aaron Rodgers messes around and wins another MVP and a Super Bowl. Could make some stuff interesting in the offseason for sure. But yeah, Chiefs, that's kind of what they were reminding me of with that. So, a few more things off the top of my head here before we wrap it up and get out of here. I plan on coming back on tomorrow around noon, hopefully. Boba Fett show, episode 3 of it will be out, I think, Wednesday morning, like super early. Like, I know the first episode dropped at like 3 a.m. on its opening Wednesday. I assume it'll be the same way the whole way. But so far, I'm really liking the Boba Fett show. We talked a lot about, Spider-Man No Way Home in the last episode when I was driving up the highway. And then my phone died and the show got cut short. But yeah, I'm liking the Boba Fett show. I don't know where I was going with that. Little brain fart there. First episode was cool where, we saw all those flashbacks. I especially like the flashback. Anytime the Star Wars prequels get a mention or an Easter egg in current day Star Wars content, I love it because that's my favorite era of Star Wars. It's the era that I grew up with. And that's the era that I really, got into Star Wars for the first time. And so I really just love any type of nod we get from that. But you saw the flashback to Geonosis in the arena after, the clones just came and saved all the Jedi and just mowed down all the droids. And then young Boba goes out there after Mace Windu took care of Jango and took his fucking dome off. And then Boba's just holding the helmet. I thought that was kind of cool. The flashback to Kamino, obviously. Yeah. What else? Oh, I'm kind of running out of stuff. I definitely thought the last episode of Boba Fett, or episode 2, was cool with the Sand People and kind of showing. And I've heard a lot of people kind of not, which I mean, again, you're going to get this because, people are never completely satisfied with anything anymore. People always have a problem with something. But a lot of people don't like how it's mostly all been flashbacks. They think, which I mean, if you're looking for the instant action, you're I guess a little disappointed. I mean, we got plenty of action in that second episode with the Sand People and the train and the speeder chase and all that, but it was a flashback, which I think it's kind of cool because it shows what Boba Fett, what happened. How did he get out of the Sarlacc pit? How did he come to meet up with Mando in The Mandalorian, where we ultimately saw Boba Fett for the first time again? And you're kind of seeing that connection of the two things, Return of the Jedi and The Mandalorian, where we meet Boba Fett again. And if it's one thing that I know about Star Wars in general, it can, because, if you remember, The Mandalorian took a little time to get going. Like, I liked season 2 better than season 1 because we were already kind of established and the momentum, and it was just better. And plus all the cameos and, Ahsoka, Boba Fett, and Luke at the end, it was a more action-packed season. But a lot of times these shows, and, that's one of the things that some people, and even me, like, because episode 1, Phantom Menace, it's not my favorite. I like it, but it's not my favorite. And that's mainly because it does take a little while to kind of get going. And anything when it's new, a new movie or series, typically does take a little time to get off the ground because you got to establish a little bit of a foundation first of where we're going with this thing. And I guarantee, and the Mandalorian, where I was going with that, the Mandalorian felt that way in season 1, and I've kind of got that similar vibe with Boba Fett. I've liked both episodes, but you can tell, especially episode 1, it's taken a little time to kind of get us into what ultimately is going to be going down in this series and in this season. So, I wasn't surprised by that, and I'm not surprised by the comments on that. It was a little slow to kind of get going. But I am excited to see, because you just, if there's one thing that Mandalorian taught us, is like, you just never know who the hell is going to show up. And boy, this year is going to be action packed. We talked a lot about this in a couple episodes ago, where, we get Hayden Christensen playing Anakin Vader again in Kenobi, which I think will most likely come out in the summertime. I think, at least so they say. And then, we're going to get Hayden Christensen as most likely Anakin's either Force Ghost or flashbacks from Clone Wars, or both, in the Ahsoka show. Because, again, remember, Mandalorian is, Ahsoka is going to parallel with the Mandalorian timeline, kind of like Boba Fett is. And this was, about 5 years after the events of Return of the Jedi, where Darth Vader, Anakin, is dead. And from what we can tell in when we meet Ahsoka in The Mandalorian, in the way she talks about how she's seen this raw strength or what starting a youngling too old down the path can do to a fully trained Jedi, aka Anakin, when he, turned on the youngling Slayer 3000 and tore up the joint in the temple in episode 3. You could tell just by the way Ahsoka was describing that memory that she maybe didn't know that Anakin had turned back right before he died. So she might not have known that. And so my guess is that we're going to see Ahsoka and Anakin reunite for the first time in that show. And we may even see some flashbacks to the Clone Wars, which I think would be kind of cool. I think it'd be kind of cool to see Anakin in his Clone Wars uniform garb that, we've seen obviously in the animated series, but we've never seen it like live action. So I think that'd be kind of cool to see. Maybe some scenes of just Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka just going at it, going ham in Clone Wars. Like, that'd be really super cool. So, and then I tell you something else that could be interesting. Now, I don't know how much, Boba Fett show will parallel, and like if we'll even which I'm not expecting to see like a Din Djarin, aka Mando, appearance in Boba Fett. Like, I don't see any reason why we would. But I'm curious. I'm curious in the Ahsoka show. Like, I do think we're going to see Ahsoka and Anakin's Force Ghost unite and reunite for the first time since, I guess, their duel in Star Wars Rebels. I'm curious if we're going to see any scenes between, and again, like, because I don't know if we're going to really have any bits and pieces or parallels from The Mandalorian in the Ahsoka show. I'm curious, like, will we get to see any scenes of Baby Yoda, aka Grogu, and Luke in the Ahsoka show? Because I feel like that show is going to be more based around Ahsoka and going after Thrawn and all that. So I don't know why we would see that, and I think all the Anakin scenes are going to be based around his relationship with Ahsoka, not. And so I guess what I'm trying to spit out here is I'm curious to see, will we see maybe any scenes between Luke and Anakin's Force Ghost in Ahsoka. I don't know why we would, but I don't know, something interesting there. But I definitely think they're going to shine more of a light on Ahsoka and Anakin's relationship in that for sure. Because again, obviously Hayden is confirmed to be back in it. So, yeah. So that's all I've got. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Monday in the books for the Wilbur and Gold Show. We will be back tomorrow, probably around noon. Catch you then. Hopefully, I'll maybe see you on the stream tonight. Not sure what time coming on yet. Maybe 7, 8, 9 o'clock or so on my Twitch, Wilbur and Gold. Right there. We'll catch you next time right here on the Wilbur and Gold Show.